Hey everybody, glad to see everyone. It's good to be back today for our Q and Ashley today. Looking forward to having some good conversation, answering some questions, making some connections. Many of you might have caught the live national radio show a couple of days ago on Saturday. It was a good show. I felt really good about it. Randy Kreger was on the show, the author of Stop Walking on Eggshells. She was going to be here tonight. She's had a situation that's taken place. She will be back in 2 weeks. I believe it's not this. I think it's the 15th. So she will be on the Q&A here in a few weeks. And today we're going to be talking about a lot of different things. We're going to be talking about, obviously relationships, overcoming toxic relationships, dealing with that. Also, I'd like to talk a little bit about gray rocking right now and the gray rock method. Many of you have used it. Many of you know what it is. Many of you using it on a daily basis. Some of you might not. Some of you might not. Some of you might say, wow, what is that? And we can talk more about that. I just put up a video yesterday on YouTube on the gray rock method. And so we'll put the link up right now in the chat. So if you haven't seen it yet, definitely check it out. Yeah, it's good. It's a good technique, and it's something that's used very easily, very well when you're dealing with folks who like to, they get supply from things that happen to you. They get supply from negative things that happen to you. They get supply from, your life, and maybe if things aren't going well for you in situations like that. And I don't know about you, but anytime that you've been around someone in your family, or I use the word friends, with air quotes, sometimes when things are happening to you and you express yourself, they kind of get off on, you not having, you having a negative time or having a trouble. I don't know if any of you have ever brought up maybe problems in your relationship. And usually that stuff is listened to because it's very interesting, because it also fuels them. And then if you're dealing with someone that is more narcissistic in nature, dealing with narcissistic abuse from somebody, one of the interesting things is that, gray rocking can really help us to safeguard ourselves. Not give too much information. That's one of the biggest issues, is we give people too much information, right? And then what do? When you give people too much information, private information about you, and it's not somebody that you can trust, they what? They use it against you. 1. They use it as forever ammunition. 2. And I have coined that phrase. I guess it was about a year and a half ago. Forever ammunition is something that a lot of folks use. Like, you bring up something that you did in the past, and any time that they want you to feel bad or feel upset or bring you down, they'll bring up that situation from the past. Make you feel bad, make you feel guilt, shame, dread, sadness, whatever it is. And so when you're dealing with folks like that, we really don't want to deal with folks like that. But if we have to, if it's a family member, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a sister or brother, whatever, if you're dealing with that, using gray rock, and a gray rock, obviously, I'm a big crystal rock person, so all rocks mean something to me, right? But, they didn't have a person that was like a crystal rock lover, name this, but a gray rock is something that you wouldn't really necessarily see, or you wouldn't necessarily pick up, right? Not something interesting. It kind of blends in. And the blending process is kind of what we're talking about. You're not standing out. You're not speaking anything about your truth. You're not speaking about your life. You're not giving any personal information. You're keeping it very, oh, hey, how you doing? If they ask you how you're doing, oh, I'm fine. Being kind of boring, being kind of lame, and creating that reality. And it can be hard, though, because if they're expecting you to talk about your life or expecting to get information out of you, they could keep prying. But yet, you just have to stay true to yourself and realize that you don't want them knowing more information about you, because they're going to use it against it. They're going to use it against you. Use it as forever ammunition. Or talk behind your back and gossip about you. That's a big thing. folks do is, they'll get information, and then guess what? They tell everybody. Maybe they tell your whole family about a problem you have. Maybe you thought you were telling them in confidence about something that was challenging for you. Maybe your child is having an issue. Maybe your marriage is going through some troubled times. And it's interesting. You think that you're just having this conversation with this one person when it's really getting out to everybody in the family. And so gray rocking can help to make sure that you don't give them any more information. Because what happens here, the reason why you use this technique is because somebody's proven themselves to not be trustworthy. Somebody has proven themselves to use your pain and suffering against you. Somebody has chosen to do that. You're not just doing that to people that love you and care about you. You're doing this as a distancing tactic to emotionally distance yourself, but to honestly safeguard yourself. We need to safeguard ourselves. That is so important. And I'm not about putting walls up. Okay, I'm not about that. You know that. It's not about putting walls up. We're not trying to be that way. We're just trying to safeguard ourselves so that in situations where somebody could use information against us or make us the topic of gossip or discussion, we offset that and we use this. I use it as a technique. It's a great technique, right? When you realize that you can't trust somebody, perfect technique. So check out the video. I just put, George just put under my name, under the Ashley Birch name, you can see it. It says the Gray Rocking video, and the link is right there. I want to reach out to everybody here on the chat. Johnny Lee, great to see you. How are you doing? Thanks for reaching out. Elizabeth, great to see you. Hi from Minneapolis. Great to see you guys. Good to see y'all. World of Gaming, hi from California. Good to see y'all. Good deal. We got a lot of folks in here from various areas, and that's good, and I'm glad to see y'all. Patricia, hi Ashley, here from East Yorkshire and England in the UK. Awesome. I used to watch a show like every day for a long time. I haven't watched TV in so long, but it was a housing show, and I can't remember, and it was a cool show, and it was all based in England, and I learned all about England and the countryside and everything else, and I'll have to remember what it is here in a second. Rebecca, great to see you. Excited to catch you live. Well, I'm excited to have you here. It's great to have you. Elizabeth, not heard of the method before. Yes, it's great, by the way, and we have a video up. It's really helpful because, a lot of times with these folks, you really can't get into an argument. You can't show them what they're doing. You can't prove to them what they're doing. Even if you say, hey, you're doing this, you're hurting me, you're doing that, they're not going to be honest. They're not going to be helpful. They're not going to listen, and you're not going to prove to them anything. So the gray rock basically cuts them out from knowing information about your life that they can use against you. Zen and me, great to see you. How are you doing? I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. Doing good. Been a big, busy day. Working with a lot of clients. Got some stuff that we're working on as well that will be up sooner than later. We had about an hour today I guess about 45, 50 minutes. We shot 3 videos in a new series that I'm working on. And the series is about, post-traumatic relationships, post-toxic relationships. So it'll be a very interesting, I think, series. And I think y'all will like it, I hope. So we're working on that and got that done today. Saw a lot of clients today, and then have another little thing coming up the pike here next week. We'll be shooting some other content too, and I'll tell you more about that once we shoot it. I don't like to. I guess they say don't like to count the chickens before they hatch thing. You want to make sure we got it all there because I don't want to promise something I don't have. Elizabeth, save to watch later. Awesome. Let me know I'd love to know what your thoughts are on it. Zen and me, the method does work. Yes, it does. Patricia, I was just thinking of crystals, and if you're wearing them in your jewelry, I love crystals. Yes, I am a big crystal fanatic. I've always loved rocks. When I was a little kid, I remember one of the best memories I can remember as a child is when it was Christmas. And I think I was 6 years old, and my dad got me one of those rock tumblers. And you get all the rocks, and you put them in the tumbler, and you tumble for like 30 days, and you put them in an area that you're not going to hear because it's like, it's like running a dryer with, with quarters, with a whole sack of quarters and broken glass. It's what the sound sounds like. So you keep it in the corner of a room, and I got really into that, and I polished my own rocks. And I remember I was like 6 years old, and ever since then, thanks.
That's so cool.
Thanks. Yeah, ever since then, I've been a rock crystal person. Yes, I always. I do. I love wearing crystals and stuff, and then I have them all over my office. Sometime on one of these shows, we'll get a roving video cam, so you can see the rest of the office. Because right now you're just kind of the crystal tour. Because now you're just seeing this area. But definitely, Patricia, I'd love to see some of the crystals you wear. I'm sure you have some amazing crystals as well. Rebecca, such great advice. I'm going to try the method. Awesome, thank you. It's powerful. Elizabeth, my mother does this all the time. Exactly. Yes. I mean, if you're dealing with somebody that's using the bad things that happen to you against you, you gotta safeguard yourself. And I've realized that we can sit there and hope that they're going to change, but in the process of hoping that they're going to change, they normally hurt us in that process. And usually somebody's not going to change unless they want to change. Yes, Rebecca, if all four of your sisters, they all do this. They'll bring up something years later. Oh, yeah, they'll remind you of something you did when you were young. Oh, I remember when he did this. And it's like you can never live it down. You can never live it down. And that's always kind of sad because, you got some of those folks in your life that no matter what you do, no matter what great things you do, they're still going to hold over your head one or two things, and it's just like you can't ever live it down. And some of us have that in our relationships, right? You've been married for a while, and maybe you confided in your spouse about years ago, before you met them, how you were in a relationship, or maybe, something that maybe you weren't the most proud of, and you talk about it and they bring it up. Oh, well, you're probably going to do this, or this was you, or whatever. And it's just, it's painstaking because you wish you never brought it up. Elizabeth, you are the answer to years of pain. I am glad to be the answer. I am glad to have some of these answers. And if I don't have them, I'll let you know. So that's kind of the way it is. And I'm glad that you are here and you're a part of it because, we're all working to get better. We're all working for clarity and we're all working to have happiness and to understand, what's not producing peace and love. There's something up. So let's look at that and understand that. And so, Elizabeth, I'm so glad you are here. Brett, great to see you. Hi from Australia. Always good to have Brett from Australia. Great. I'm glad you are here. Yes, definitely the gaslighting, Elizabeth. And you know what? That's what a lot of folks say. And it's interesting you brought that up, Elizabeth, about being the fly on the wall. A lot of people say, it seems like you're in my house. It seems like you're watching what's happening. It seems like you know exactly what's going on. And it's just because of years of experience and working with clients and knowing what's going on. It's also years of my personal experience, and it's also understanding the human dynamic and why people do what they do and what they're going to do next. And if you can understand that, great. If you can't, that's fine too, but we want to safeguard ourselves to know that, okay, this is probably going to happen. The problem is a lot of times we have that false hope, and that false hope can put us in an unsafe place. And it's not bad to have hope for people. I'm not going to sit there and say that we're supposed to not have hope and care, but sometimes we have to watch our empathy and know that sometimes our empathy can hurt us if we don't watch out. We can be empathetic, but we can be empathetic and have emotional distance, to be able to safeguard ourselves. Faint signals from Vega. Great to see you. How are you doing? Great to have you here. Patricia, wow, I'm 59. Got into crystals over the last 15 years. Love collecting them. I do too. I love the energy. Zenemy, love the energy crystals. Patricia, yes. Let's see. Had things brought up, hurtful things many times by several narcissists, including family and my partner. And that's normal. That's the thing too, is that a lot of times too, when we get around situations and personalities, a lot of times, we'll say, well, why is it that I'm bringing this type of personality to me? It's because you've been around it your whole life. Okay. Your family, people that raised you. Then it seems like you find a partner that's very similar to one of those family members, right? And so and it's hard when you're getting it from all sides. I've even worked with clients where, they're dealing with it with mother, they're dealing with it with their sister, they're dealing with it with their ex-husband, they're dealing with it with their boss. I mean, it's just like, it's everywhere. And those are the things that we have to kind of understand and work within. Faint signals from Vega. I really appreciate your advice 3 weeks ago about my mom's inability to love herself. When I said she was like a cup with a hole in it, she needed constant reassurance that we loved her. That's so true, and I'm glad that I could be helpful. And that was, yeah, that was 3 weeks ago. Wow, time has flown. Um, okay, Zenemy, question. What does it mean when someone says everything you see is authentic and everything you don't see is authentic? Interesting. Huh. Everything you see. Yeah, I mean, I can see that in an esoteric way. I do find, though, sometimes, I mean, just a kind of, I don't know, side note, is sometimes I don't think that everything we see is authentic. I think it depends on, I think it depends on what we're seeing. And I think that our eyes can be very deceiving and our ears can be extremely deceiving because our eyes can deceive us. Also, the judgment that we have about ourselves can deceive us because a lot of times we judge ourselves, sometimes maybe negatively or lesser than, and so we see other people as having more or having a better situation or having a more healthy relationship or having a better marriage or whatever that looks like. But then everything you see is a thing. That I also think that everything that we hear, we have to be very careful because we, as a species, humans, have a tendency of, instead of watching what people do, we listen to what people say. And so I think also, and so that's something that we have to be aware of too, because a lot of times what people say is not authentic. But I understand that if you're coming from a place of being a fully 100% authentic, real, comfortable in your own skin, doing everything exactly as your truth, what you would be or see or think or feel would be in some way authentic because it couldn't be outside of authentic, because if you are living in an authenticity, you would see it as its authentic truth. So there's lots of different levels there, but I do think and that's interesting that you brought that up. I do think though that we have to be careful what we hear and processing that as truth. And we have to also realize what we see and processing that as truth, because also the impact that media has, also the impact that social media has. And I'm not putting this down. I'm not, but it's like the way that they're making us out to be how we should be or how we should feel or what our family should look like or when you should get married or how many kids you should have or what your house should look like. We have to be careful to intake that and to take that into our reality. And so that's really hard too, because it's like, at what point do we peel away all the BS and allow ourselves to live our life? And I find it interesting. And heck, I'm human. I found it interesting, like, even in my own life, when you think about, well, when you don't have kids and what the impact of that is. And then you hear, people that, they want you to have kids because they have kids. And then you hear people that have been single for a while and they haven't been married and they're at a certain age and they're feeling bad about that. I'm not married and I'm 40 or whatever. What's wrong with me? And it's like the problem is we've created this universe and this environment where it's like we're all having to try to fit in because this is right. And I think that's something, and I know I've gone on to a tangent, but I mean, that's a great question, what you brought up, Zen, because I do think it's like, what is our authenticity? What is authentic within ourselves? And I've realized that anytime we try to be what we believe we should be, that's when we walk back out of being authentic. That's when we walk back out of being in our truth. Because our truth might not be what is the most popular thing. It's not like, our life is like, you don't walk into the restaurant and be like, hey, what life should I get? What's the dish that everybody gets? I just want to make sure. And they're like, well, the most popular is, you get married at 26, you have 2 kids, you have a Volvo and it's some sort of sports utility vehicle. You have a house, you have your kids, you put them in a soccer practice. It's like, and I think a lot of times we walk down that path where it's like, holy crap, I don't have this or I don't have that. That makes me lesser than. Or my life is like this, or I don't have that happy family. And it was interesting. I was thinking back at a situation. And I don't know if y'all have ever experienced this, but many of you may have to some degree where, if you've ever had any sort of toxicity in your family dynamic or childhood or things that didn't go right. I don't know if any of you have been in a situation maybe when you were growing up where you experienced another family and you experienced their reality, and their reality was so positive that it almost, like, it was so amazing and it's something that you hadn't experienced before that you almost run away from it. Like, I don't know if you've ever experienced that, because I remember, A long time ago. This is a long time ago, and it was a Christmas thing, and I was with my boyfriend, and I got there, and the family was so happy, and the mother was so outgoing, and the father was so happy, and it was like, and they could talk and laugh and have fun, and nobody was hiding everything. They were having fun. The people that were smoking cigarettes were smoking cigarettes, doing their thing. But I remember how stressful that made me because it didn't feel comfortable. I wasn't used to that environment, and I think that some of us come from that type of situation, and we've dealt with it, and we've walked in those shoes. Where you find yourself outside on the phone wanting to get the hell out of there. But it's like, why do I want to get the hell out of there? Why I want to get there? Because it's uncomfortable because it's not what you dealt with. But also there's a little bit of, gosh, why didn't I have that in my life? Why wasn't that? And so I think a lot of us go through that in different levels. Faint signals from Vega, really good. Thanks, Ashley. Hey, I appreciate you. Mike in Ohio, I watch your videos on BPD a few times a year to remind me what my 12 years of marriage was like. 12 years of Mirage was like. Thank you for putting a name to it. Mike, great. I'm glad that you tuned in. I hope the videos help because a lot of times we have to realize that what we want to believe versus what is true can be very opposite. And it's interesting about, the quote about the authenticity, which I think is interesting from Zen and me. That's interesting because it's not always the truth. It can be what we want so bad. And that's why some relationships can seem great because at the time we feel like it's amazing. It's like we look at it and we see the situation and we feel like it's, the truth and we see that person. But a lot of times too, it's that perfect storm. It's what we're used to. It's our normalcy. It's not our healthy, but it's our normalcy. And this person comes and especially with the love bombing process, Mike, I think that, that really connects with us because a lot of times we haven't ever had that type of, attention and it's nice to have that attention. But being able to understand where that's coming from, understanding the relationship dynamics, but better yet, understanding that, until people really find their truth, they can't unconditionally love somebody. They can't, and because they can't unconditionally love themselves. Hylam, Valerie, thank you for helping me get over my BPDX. Your videos are most helpful. The missing part of it is the most difficult, but you motivated me to stay strong. Love from the Netherlands. Thank you for reaching out. I appreciate you, and I appreciate that you've been watching the videos, and I'm so glad that I could help. The missing part, and that's the key, is like when you miss somebody because you're thinking about them all the time. And, we have to be careful how much we're doing on deflection, too, because we have a tendency of deflecting. And you've obviously overcome it, but, we can deflect into wondering what that other person's doing, what's going on, how are they living their life. And the missing part, it's dual, right? It's missing them. It's missing the relationship, but it's also missing the image of the relationship. It's missing what we wanted the relationship to be. And then there's also the part of not wanting to be alone. None of us are like, woohoo, I love being alone. That's great. I love it. I love coming home by myself, so that's part of it too. So there's multiple layers of it, but I think when you start pulling the layers back and you start seeing the relationship for what it is, it's more of we miss the idea. We miss the idea of the relationship more than we did. And I'm glad that the videos could help, and I'm glad that you're on the other side of this, and anything I can do to help, please let me know. Zen in me, I couldn't wrap my head around that. Thanks for your perspective. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Maria, great to see you. How are you doing? Glad y'all are here. So, it's like, we talked a little bit about gray rocking earlier, and gray rocking is such a valuable technique. One of the things that I've realized on technique basis for dealing with folks, especially that maybe push our buttons, maybe use the forever ammunition. And there's a video. I don't know if we have that. Do you know where that video is on YouTube about forever ammunition?
I think so.
Forever ammunition. When people tell us that we're not good enough, there's something wrong with us, whether it's a spouse or a family member, or, a sibling, where they're telling us that we have a problem, we're the problem. They keep pointing out our issues, and it's hard because it's pushing our buttons, right? And the biggest thing is that it can make us feel bad, it makes us feel sad, it makes us feel shame, but also we end up owning that, right? So we own that, and then when we own that situation, what happens? We respond in the type of ownership. Like, so if somebody's telling you, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about, you're always doing something wrong. And, we have a tendency of being like, I'm not doing it wrong, and we have a tendency of trying to defend ourselves. But see, the interesting part of that is right when we go into defense, it's very hard not to. I'm not saying this is easy. right when we go into defense, we affirm what they're saying. They don't hear what we're saying. They just know that we have jumped to that same level as they have. And now basically they are saying in their own mind, yep, I was right. I'm right on. I'm allowed to say this about this to this person. And I'm realizing that if we don't jump in and we don't own it, which it's very hard to do, but you can do it. And this is what I work with clients to do: is we get back ourselves, we take back ourselves, we push back, and we create enough emotional distance between us and that person, and we begin to actually see that what they're saying to us is not really directed toward us, right? Which is a very interesting thing. It's not really directed toward us. Really think about it. The next time, if you're in a situation where you're having a family member or a significant other or whatever telling you what's wrong with you or the problems that you are or whatever you've created that's wrong, step back a little bit before trying to jump and defend yourself, because that's usually the way that we do things, right? We defend ourselves, and then it's a slippery slope. They're constantly finding fault. We're constantly defending. Maybe there's an uptick, then there's another fault find they find, then maybe there's some forever ammunition, then maybe there's a little gaslighting and manipulation, then we argue it again. But it's like I've realized that when we're in this process, the thing that we have to do is we have to safeguard ourselves by, first off, not increasing our heart rate, because we normally do that, and that stress and anxiety can really do a number on our heart, literally a physical number, right? It can be bad for us health-wise. But the other thing, too, is that once we get to that level and we accept that and we basically trump what they're saying, like, that's not right, or we try to defend ourselves or we apologize, we're acquiescing to what they're saying. And one of the things that I've realized is that sometimes there doesn't need to be any response. You don't need to respond at all. You don't need to respond at all. And sometimes after you've heard something multiple times and you've tried to respond over, maybe it's been over weeks, months, or years, there's a time when you can just say, hey, time out. We've discussed this before. You bring this up every day, and it's not interesting to me anymore. And, I know that it's hard to do that, but when we can, all of a sudden we begin to break the programming of what we're dealing with. So that manipulation and that gaslighting is, if we're not jumping in on that boat, if we're not jumping into what they're saying and connecting with that, we're not giving what they're saying credence. We're not affirming their reality. And usually, their reality, especially when, they're finding fault with us, right, is not really a true reality, because the opposite never happens. There is never any fault with them. And I don't like to use the word never, but very rarely will they ever take any responsibility for anything. And I like to use that example where you come home and the house has been blown up and the bricks are all on the ground. And if you say, wow, what happened to the house? Did you blow it up? No, they didn't. But if you say we blew down the house, then you might get some consistency where they'll agree that both of you did it, even though you were at work. And I like to use that example. But for the most part, there's nothing that they've done. And that's what's so hard, is that you're constantly on the defensive defending yourself when they're not having to defend themselves at all, because they have you on the constant fence line. Maria, thank you so much. You are so smart. I appreciate you. I'm glad that you have tuned in, by the way. And I know that we weren't able to do this. I guess it was it not last? We didn't do the Q&A last week, right?
No.
And then the week before we didn't do it either, so it's been kind of crazy. So I apologize for the inconsistency. I do apologize for that. Faint signals from Vega. I don't know if social media gives a distortion of society, but I notice there seems to be more and more irrational herd-like behavior online. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I do think that we only see small things. And the interesting thing about social media is you only see kind of like either what you want to see or what you don't want to see. And then you have a lot of people that do have the hive mentality or the herd, where they're, and a lot of people want to get in where they fit in. And I haven't found a lot on social media that I agree with, but it's interesting, But I do see the sides that are taken, and the sides that are taken are very interesting sides. And there's a lot of people that take those specific sides. But I think it takes us to really look within ourselves, to really sense our values, to really see what we really believe in. And usually what you really probably believe in is not something that has any sort of major following, because there's pieces of each thing, right? There's pieces of this or piece of that, that matters to you, but not the whole enchilada. Elizabeth, you have referenced safeguarding and boundaries or walls mentioned. They are different. Will you please clarify? So, safeguarding ourselves means, to me, when we safeguard ourselves, it means having enough emotional distance. It means being able to be aware when somebody is pushing our buttons. Safeguarding ourselves is also being able to explore our triggers. Anytime that somebody is triggering you, even though, a lot of times, and there's another video on that too. You remember the one that's triggers as an opportunity? Well, we didn't title triggers as an opportunity, but we titled it, say it. Because nobody would buy into that just looking at that title. Nobody's going to say, oh, yay, I got triggered. This is a great opportunity. No. But another way of safeguarding yourself is understanding your triggers. So when somebody is triggering you constantly, instead of blowing up and getting to that level that normally what we do, or instead of apologizing, or instead of crying, or instead of running away, or whatever it is, looking at that trigger and being able to analyze it can give you so much information into yourself. And also it takes the stress off too, because all of a sudden you're looking at the trigger from a different perspective, right? It's not like, what the F? They just said this stuff to me again. I'm so tired of this crap. You know what I mean? Instead of that, you're like, okay, wait a second. Why did I get so angry about that? What was that within me that gets so upset when they do that? And so while they're just talking about BS, you're actually starting to analyze yourself. And so you've kind of just shut them out anyway, mentally, which is great. So that's another technique on safeguarding, is really looking at our triggers. Writing those down too is powerful. So like, if you're dealing with somebody that's in your life that triggers you constantly, what's the trigger? What do they say? And then writing that down. What really triggered me? And you got to get deep with some of this stuff. Boundaries are different. So boundaries are based on values. The only way that we can create boundaries is when we actually know our values. That's it. That's the only way. And the only way we know our values is to understand, what do we stand for, or what do we want to stand for? And let me give you an example of that real quick. And we're going to have a video, that new video series I told you about. We just started. We just shot 3 videos today on that. So on values, let me give you an example of value. Independent thought, independent action, independent emotions. I'm a big person that really values independence in all of my relationships. I don't want anybody telling me how to live. I don't want anybody telling me how I should feel. I don't want anybody telling me how I should think, okay? And when I choose to make a comment about a thought that I have, if somebody makes fun of my comment, or makes fun of my thought, or, whatever, that's an automatic problem. Not that I'm giving my thoughts out to the world all the time, but what I'm saying is that, if I'm choosing to be around people and I make a comment about something I thought about, and somebody makes fun of me or puts me down, that's an issue. And that's where the boundary comes in, because that's where I'm not going to accept that reality. For example, if somebody was to make fun of how I felt, that's definitely not cool. If somebody was to make light of how I felt, if someone wasn't even going to allow me to feel, that's another problem. Another issue with the independence is the action, being able to do so. I work, I do this, I do that. I don't have to sit there and explain to my significant other that I'm going to be, he knows I work. We already have that conversation. We already know how late I stay. We already had that conversation. I'm not going to sit there and apologize knowing that if he made dinner at 7 o'clock and he knows I'm not going to be there till 8:30, I'm going to try to get there as soon as possible. But at the same time, I'm not apologizing for being late, because I'm not late. You already knew what I was doing. So we don't have to sit there and ask these questions. And so when you talk about boundaries, your boundaries are based on your values. And so the boundary would be like, hey, I'm not going to have you dictate what time I get in or what time we're eating, that sort of thing. And so that's kind of the boundary. The walls, when you think about walls, when I talk about walls, usually to me, that's when somebody has emotionally distanced themselves. And that's not always a good thing, because I think boundaries are really structured, and I think safeguarding is good. But I think that sometimes we create walls because of the fear of dealing with the person. We cut off ties because when we try to communicate, they put us down. Or when we cut off ties, we do that because we've tried everything. We've tried everything else. And that's something to be said, that when we tried everything else and we go to that process, that's something that, The walls usually is when people just put their hands up in the air and don't know what to do. And I think that's usually what kind of happens. Um, and that's something to kind of think about. Maria, who is George? Oh, George. George is my assistant. Yay! And George.
I'm at the keyboard. I'm typing up stuff.
Yeah, George is on the keyboard right now. So, yeah, he's very helpful. He's very helpful. He and I've been working together for a long time, actually. Years and years. Years and years and years, right?
Kind of crazy, right?
I know, right? Oh my gosh, it's wild. Yeah, George has been on. He's been on one time on the Q&A. I'm gonna get him on here in the next few weeks. We're gonna mic him up this time though. So mic him up and do a mic check, and we'll have him on. And you'll get to see George more. He's here hanging out with Buddy right now. So actually, Buddy is laying on your legs. Yeah. Mike, here again. My current girlfriend of 2 years was told by her social work therapist she's a widow getting grief counseling that she is BPD. And I said if there's anything, it's not BPD. Well, yeah, and you want to be careful with that too, because you got to be careful with quick diagnoses. People can have signs and symptoms of various things, and I think everybody has signs and symptoms of something. And none of us are just like oh, you have no signs and symptoms of codependency. Oh, you have no signs of BPD. Oh, you have no signs of narcissism. Oh, you have no signs of histrionic. Oh, you have no. I think we all have some pieces of that, and that's not horrible. I mean, that's just the way it is. But yeah, I would definitely, if that's a question in your mind, Mike, I would have her maybe go consult with someone else just to make sure. It doesn't ever hurt to consult with multiple people and to really get it, because you don't want to be labeled something that you're not. If you are, then you can get the help you need. But I really think that we want to make sure that, because you got to be careful with labels, because labels can, it can help people, it can hurt people, it can encourage people, it can make them retreat. You got to be real careful with the label, and because I think that programming is programming, and if we actually discover what the programming level is, we can begin to remedy it. But we really need to know. But if there is a mislabel, that's worse than anything, I think. So definitely, I would try to see if she can get help.
I would say especially for being careful labeling yourself too quick, because you can get caught up in the excitement of the label.
That's a good comment. Yeah, George is saying, because I think that, labeling, we have to be careful, but if we're going to get the knowledge base that we need, and also we need to get the help that we need, we just don't want to be we don't want to be walking down the wrong path. I think that every moment we have is valuable. We want to make sure that we're on the right path when we're working on ourselves, and we don't want to add even more question to what we don't know. Highland Valerie, question. Well, how should you approach a core wound? What is the way to healing? It is causing codependent behavior and might be due to emotional neglect in childhood. I'm not sure how to proceed. Okay, yeah, I mean, core wounds, we all have core wounds. I've had people argue with me and say, I don't have a core wound. And, everybody's got one. Even if you had a decent family, even if your dad didn't leave, even if your mom didn't leave, even if somebody who didn't go to prison. I mean, everybody's got these core wounds. It's interesting, because remember, when we're kids, we see things so differently than we do usually as adults. And some people still manage their emotions as they did when they were children. But very extreme black and white thinking, right? So remember, as a core wound, it could be a lot of different things. When something happened to us, for example, like if a father left, and mom and dad were at wit's end, and mom and dad couldn't get along, and dad leaves, and instead of realizing as a kid, oh, mom and dad are having a challenging marriage, and they can't get along, and mom's this and that. No, we don't see that. We just see that dad left. Okay, so that can cause abandonment. That can cause, fear of being alone. That can cause all kinds of stuff, fear of being abandoned. So when we have codependent behavior, a lot of times that's because we feel like in order to keep somebody, we have to be codependent. We have to be there at their beck and call. We have to take care of them. We've also probably seen that behavior as well with somebody that was near us. And I think that in order to begin to really explore core wounds, one of the things that you can find is like really being aware of how you act in a relationship. What are the things that you feel actually get in the way of having a healthy relationship. Looking at some of the things they use, like when I look back at my family dynamic, I see, there was a little bit of codependency that I took with me. My mother is wonderful. She's a great woman, but she was extremely codependent with my father. And, you can like kind of look at that. You can look at the core wounds. And I think the best way to really start analyzing core wounds is looking at the reoccurring, situations, possible negative situations that have happened in your life. Look at the types of people that you're bringing into your life, the types of relationships. You want to be careful with core wound work because, it's right there under the surface anyway. It's just being able to acknowledge it. And a lot of times too, like for example, if abandonment is a core wound, the codependency is there to keep the person no matter what. So we have a tendency of not creating boundaries because we're fearful that the other person will leave based on our boundary production. And if you can find someone good to work with core wounds, I do that with a lot of clients now. And it's interesting because we're able to like go back and say, okay, this is the reason why you got in this relationship was not based on the fact that you made a stupid decision or the fact that you can't choose the right man or woman. It's because of, what happened as a child. You connected with this person, especially like when folks say, well, I don't know how I fell into the relationship with somebody that had BPD or this. It's like, well, a lot of times it's the love bombing and the connection that you had that you never had, that attention that you never got. And so we can start like peeling away the layers of some of the choices that you made to really understand the core wound, and then begin to start working on how to really augment that. Because the core wounds, the biggest difficulty with a core wound is once we see it, that's great, but then we have to connect the brain and the heart. Core wound is there. It's been there so long. It's so there. It's been there for a long time that even when we see the truth, sometimes we go back into that reality of the core wound. Because remember, when we're dealing with core wounds, from the core wounds come core beliefs about ourselves. No matter how off those core beliefs are, they're still held in the light that they're true. Even if we are smart or we are a good person or people do love us, let's say like our core belief is that nobody will ever love me. Even though you have people around you that do love you and you can see that, it's hard to connect the dots. You still feel I'm not loved. And that me not being loved goes back to XYZ as a child, right? So it's like, but it takes a while to remap that. It takes a while to remap the beliefs, to remap the personal thoughts, to remap the actual physical programming that comes from that. And that's stuff that, we work with. But definitely when you're ready, when you're ready to approach that, basically just, the one good thing about it is that it's nothing that you don't really know in your gut. It's nothing that you don't know subconsciously. So it's not like you're going to figure, it's not going to be like this, oh my God. It might be an aha moment for most people, which it is when we work with them. But at the same time, it's not going to be horrible and overwhelming. You're already kind of dealing with it anyway, because we go into everything we do. The core wound is like the operating system, and our core beliefs are like the program in the background. So we're already going through it. It's good to excavate it and understand where it started. And so, yeah, definitely you want to find someone, that's worked with that, knows how to find it, knows how to excavate that, and can do it in a safe way, but also be able to go back and see past choices, examples of why you did what you did based on that, and then trying to change the core beliefs. I've realized that once we identify the core beliefs, which is directly relational to the core wounds, and that's when you want to listen to your thoughts. Your thoughts give away your core beliefs, and that's where I usually start, and that's the best way to start, because you have to listen really deeply to your own thoughts and stuff to really connect, to really understand what's happening, to get into what the core wounds are, because the beliefs are on top of the wound, right? Because you got the wounds, and then we have those beliefs that we create from the wounds. Once we begin to understand where our beliefs, remember our thoughts, the beliefs in our head are in our thoughts. Those thoughts run our life. And, we have to be able to silence ourselves long enough to be able to hear what's going on here. Journaling a lot will help you with that, and it'll be powerful because it'll expose those core personal beliefs. So I hope that that's helped. Mike, it's good. It turns out that she's got a different issue. Yeah, but it's turned into a message to not believe advice from a therapist. And you know what? You're right. Sometimes people unfortunately, they might not have been on top of their game or knew what they were talking about. And I understand that there's a lot of folks that are scared because they've been to a therapist, they've been to a life coach, they've been to a minister, they've been to a psychologist where they got wrong information. And, I think we've been to people all, for every single thing in our life where we've gotten wrong information, whoever it was. And I understand her fear, but also that can also be a wall that she's creating because, maybe not wanting to do the work or also, a fear that she has. And it's unfortunate that she's gone through this, Mike. I hope that she can find someone she can trust. And that's key. We have a few more minutes left, guys. I got to jump here in a second because I want to take a quick bathroom break, get some water before my last session of the evening. But, I want to leave y'all with this. It's like, when we're going through life, we want to try to get as much information we can about what we need to know. And the most important thing that we need to learn about is ourselves. Every relationship in our life helps us to understand more about ourselves if we use it in the right way. So we have to be able to use it in the right way. We have to be able to use the knowledge that we get from, talking with other people, from the triggers from relationship, from the things that we're dealing with. That actually helps us. And as long as we can keep using that for the greater good as far as for ourselves and to see that value, we can keep getting value from that. It's only when we fall prey into these triggers, prey into the toxic relationships, and usually we fall prey before we actually get balance and understanding, right? But it's like, how long does it take us to realize, oh, there's a wake-up call, there's something we need to learn, there's something that we can learn about ourselves. And that's what I found is that toxic relationships, yes, are toxic, but if we can actually use them as a learning tool, it can be very powerful. And so that's what we talk about in a lot of videos. And if we can't get something out of the relationship and we have to stay in it because it's a family dynamic or something like that, we have to safeguard ourselves. And that's a part of the other types of videos. And then there's some relationships that we have to get out of and we have to move on from, and we have to do that. And I think it's part of our soul duty. And that's other videos that we have. So we're going to be putting up a lot more videos. We're going to be talking about a lot more trauma here, probably in the next few weeks, helping folks with that as well. And that's a specialization all of its own. And so let me know. We have a show on Saturday. I think we're going to be live on the radio. I don't know about what I'm going to talk about, but if you have an idea of something that you would like spoken about, a subject matter, please let me know. You can contact me. Do you want to give them the link to the contact page on the website? George is going to give the link to the contact page on the website so that you can contact me and let me know if there's some subject matters that you would like me to talk about on the radio show on Saturday. The radio show is 1 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock Pacific. And we can talk about that. If you'd like to contact me to work with me, you can use that same contact. He's going to put the link to that page and just scroll down and you'll see a contact sheet kind of thing. And you can just fill it out. Just make sure that you give me the email to respond back with. Ever so often, out of every, 10, you get about 1 or 2 where I can't get the email to go through. So it just kicks back to me. And unfortunately, I think a lot of folks, some of those folks feel like I never responded back to them. And it's not that I didn't try. I couldn't because the email wouldn't go through. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. I hope you can check out the Gray Rock video that George posted earlier. And that video, I really think can help you. And you might not think that it's necessary for maybe that, in your personal relationship, in your marriage or in your family, but it could actually work with maybe a coworker or another situation that it might not be in the forefront of your mind, but these techniques can truly help. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Look forward to seeing y'all on Saturday if you can tune in for the live radio show. I will try to turn off the commercials. It's hard, though, because I want to make sure that I'm back on air on time. It's a national show, so I can't screw that up. But I had some people that were kind of upset about the commercials last Saturday, and I feel bad about that. I'm not making any money on those commercials at all, so I will try to tune it off. It's not what I want everybody to hear. We'll try to work on that. So I appreciate some of y'all for hanging in there this last Saturday, even though there was a lot of commercials, because the radio has a lot of commercials. Mike, thanks so much. I appreciate you, and I appreciate everybody. Valerie, I appreciate y'all for tuning in. And everybody that's tuning in, thank you so much. And let me know, though, if you have an idea for Saturday's show. Also, I'm going to be doing some podcasts here in the future where we're talking to folks who have overcome narcissistic abuse overcome various different toxic relationships. And if you want to come on the radio and talk about that, we don't have to disclose all information at all. If you want to come on, we can, it would be good for other people to learn from other people and understand the challenges that they've been through and that they are not alone. That's one of the biggest problems we have, discrepancies, is people think they're alone, and they're not alone at all, right? They're not alone. But when you feel you're alone, you feel like you feel like you're on an island with no help. You feel like you're stupid or you don't know things. And it's like, no, there's a lot of people going through it, and a lot of people have gone through it and going through it. And it's good when you know that there's other people going through things, because you realize that you too can get through it and make it through, but also you're just not alone. One of the biggest problems we have in certain relationships is that you begin to feel like it's just you, and you begin to feel like you don't have any help. And here you have help. So if you need a question answered, just reach out. George put the link on the contact page right here. And Maria, good to see you. It's always good to see you, Maria. Thank you so much. And everybody, thank you all so much for tuning in. Let me know. I look forward to hearing from you in any type of time that I can take some of your ideas. And if you want to come on the show, definitely. But I definitely want to talk about the subject matters that matter to you. Have a great night. Take care. And we will be back. Well, we'll be back. We'll be back. We'll be back on the Q&A, I think, next week. And then we'll be back on the radio show on this Saturday. Take care. Love y'all. Don't forget to live your true life. Take care, guys.